There has been a lot of discussion about rising China and declining United States of America, and this relationship has been pitted against the so-called Thucydides trap. Trying to understand the Chinese economy, we have to know that it is still going through a process of economic and social reform that started in the late 1970s, beginning of 1980s, under Deng Xiaoping. In 2001, when China became member of the WTO, it marked a period of about more than a decade of double-digit economic growth that slowed down under the new normal with the aftermath of the global economic and financial crisis. There has been a lot of misunderstanding about this slowdown called the new normal. And everybody, or a large part of the Western media and general public, perceive it as a bad thing. But we have to understand that for over a decade, Chinese economy has been growing by double-digit growth. The base of the economic base at that time was quite low. In the meantime, over a decade of double-digit growth, the Chinese economy has grown quite considerably. Therefore, it is fairly logical that this growth cannot be sustained over a long period of time. Now, if I can illustrate this misunderstanding about Chinese economic growth. In 2007, just before the global economic and financial crisis, China marked one of the highest growth rates in its history, 14.7% annual GDP growth. At that time, Chinese GDP was about 3.5 trillion US dollars. In 2016, Chinese growth was a mere 6.7% GDP, very considerably less compared to 2007. But at that time, Chinese GDP was over 8 trillion US dollars. So 14% of 3.5 trillion makes an addition of about 504 billion US dollars that were added to the Chinese economy in 2007. In 2016, 6.7% of 8 and a little bit more billion GDP added actually 540 billion US dollars to the Chinese economy. So we have to also think in absolute terms. We have to take into consideration that the Chinese economy is coming out of a prolonged period of very expensive economic growth, and that becoming a middle-income society, this growth is no longer realistic. The base has become much stable. So understanding how much actually China is adding every year and understanding the background of this economic growth, which is more sustainable, which is more realistic, not based on inflated statistical data, actually provides a much more accurate picture. Understanding the transformation of Chinese economy and society also requires an understanding of the structural shifts that are taking place. Before the global economic and financial crisis of 2018, one could say that the Chinese economy was standing on two legs. The first leg were investments, particularly in infrastructure. The second leg was an export-driven economy. As the global economic and financial crisis of 2008 came, China realized it was too dependent on foreign demand. It started a restructuring process, whereas it wanted to be an economy standing on three legs, with the most important leg being a strong domestic market and a strong domestic consumer culture.